My name is Tanya, and for 15 years I was the invisible chef behind every family holiday. I poured my heart into creating perfect meals while they laughed, took photos, and made memories without me. Nobody noticed my absence from family albums or my exhaustion at the end of each celebration. That changed this year when I finally reached my breaking point at Thanksgiving and made a decision that left them panicking with a raw turkey at Christmas. Let me know where you are watching from. Hit the like and subscribe buttons and tell me if your family has ever taken your efforts completely for granted too. I grew up in Lakefield, a small town in Minnesota where everyone knew everyone. Our modest two-story home with its wraparound porch became the gathering spot for every holiday, a tradition that started long before I was born. My earliest memories revolve around the kitchen, the heart of our home. While other kids played in the yard, I stood on a wooden stool next to my grandmother Margaret, watching her hands work magic with simple ingredients. Grandma Margaret was an incredible cook who could transform basic items into feasts that brought our entire family together. Her pumpkin pie was legendary in our town, and her turkey was so moist people talked about it for weeks afterward. She never used written recipes. Everything was a pinch of this, a dash of that. I was the only grandchild interested enough to stand beside her for hours, absorbing her techniques and secrets. Cooking is love made visible, she would tell me while kneading dough for her famous dinner rolls. Remember, Tanya, when you feed someone, you are nourishing more than their body. Those words stayed with me as I grew up. Throughout my teenage years, I helped her prepare holiday meals, gradually taking on more responsibilities. By the time I turned 18, we were cooking side by side as equals. Those were precious moments I never appreciated enough until they were gone. The winter I turned 22, Grandma Margaret passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. Our family was devastated. She was our emotional anchor, the woman who kept us connected through her food and warmth. The first Thanksgiving without her was approaching, and nobody knew what to do. My mother Diana, always anxious about appearances, worried about maintaining traditions. My father Robert sat quietly in his recliner, hiding his grief behind his newspaper. My older brother Jake and his new wife Samantha discussed ordering food from a local restaurant. My younger sister Melanie, only 19 at the time, suggested going to a restaurant. I remember standing in the kitchen doorway listening to this conversation, feeling a mixture of sadness and disbelief. Going to a restaurant for Thanksgiving, ordering in, that would have broken Grandma Margaret's heart. I can do it, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me with surprise. I can make Thanksgiving dinner. I know all of Grandma's recipes. The relief on their faces was immediate. My mother hugged me with tears in her eyes. Oh, sweetheart, that would be wonderful. Margaret would be so proud. That first Thanksgiving was terrifying. I started preparations 3 days in advance, just as Grandma had taught me. I made lists, shopped carefully, and followed her methods precisely. When I placed the 20-pound turkey in the oven at 5 in the morning, I whispered, "Help me get this right, Grandma." Surprisingly, everything turned out nearly perfect. The turkey was golden and juicy, the mashed potatoes creamy with just the right amount of butter, and the gravy smooth without a single lump. I even managed to recreate Grandma's pumpkin pie, though it wasn't quite as good as hers. The family was genuinely appreciative that year. My father raised his glass in a toast to Tanya for keeping Grandma's spirit alive. Everyone clapped and my mother wiped away tears. Jake helped me clear the table afterward, and Melanie hugged me tightly. "It tasted just like when Grandma made it," she whispered. The second year went equally well. I felt confident and even added a few dishes of my own creation. Again, the family expressed gratitude and acknowledged the effort I had put in. I felt connected to Grandma Margaret through the cooking process, and providing this service to my family gave me purpose. By the third year, things began to change subtly. The thank yous became more perfunctory. Jake and Samantha started arriving just in time for the meal, rather than coming early to help set up. My mother began hovering in the kitchen, offering unsolicited advice. "Grandma always put more sage in the stuffing," she would say, or, "That turkey looks like it needs another hour." Dad retreated further into watching football, and Melanie would disappear with friends until dinner was served. By year 5, the transformation was complete. What had begun as my heartfelt gift to honor my grandmother had evolved into an expectation. My role became fixed. I was the holiday chef, nothing more and nothing less. The guest list expanded as Jake and Samantha had 2 children, Emma and Lucas. Cousins who had stopped coming after Grandma died began returning once they heard the food was still excellent. Friends of friends were invited. What started as an intimate family gathering of 8 people gradually expanded to 20. Nobody discussed the increasing burden this placed on me. Nobody offered to contribute financially to the growing grocery bills. Nobody suggested rotating the hosting duties. It was simply understood: Tanya cooks, Tanya serves, Tanya cleans. I remember one particular Thanksgiving when Jake arrived with 4 extra colleagues from work without warning me. "Hope you made enough," he said casually, as he grabbed a beer from the refrigerator. I stood there, calculator in hand, trying to figure out how to stretch the food for 4 more people. That was the beginning of my resentment, though I was still too committed to the idea of family unity to speak up. Instead, I just worked harder, slept less, and smiled more thinly as each holiday approached. 3 years ago, things reached a new low during Christmas dinner. I had been cooking since 4 in the morning, preparing a standing rib roast that cost nearly $200 from my own pocket. Nobody had offered to chip in despite my hints about the expense. By the time everyone arrived at 2 in the afternoon, I was exhausted but had produced what I considered my finest holiday meal yet. As we gathered around the table, Jake took his first bite of my chestnut stuffing and frowned. "This is different," he said, pushing it around his plate. "It is not as good as last year. Did you change the recipe?" I felt my face flush with embarrassment. "No, it is the exact same recipe I always use." "Well, something is off," he insisted, looking around the table for support. "Right, Dad, it tastes different." My father, who had barely tasted his food between enthusiastic descriptions of the football game, just nodded. "Sure does." I had spent 3 hours on that stuffing alone, carefully, toasting the bread, roasting and peeling chestnuts by hand, chopping fresh herbs from my indoor garden. And here was Jake, who could barely make toast, criticizing my cooking. My mother, Diana, always conscious of keeping peace, jumped in. "The turkey is wonderful though, Tanya. Almost as good as your grandmother used to make. Almost as good." After 15 years of practice, I was still falling short in her eyes. Later that evening, as I washed dishes alone in the kitchen, I could hear them all laughing in the living room, taking photos for the annual Christmas card. Nobody called me to join them. When the photo cards arrived in the mail weeks later, I was conspicuously absent once again. It was as if I did not exist beyond my utilitarian function. The financial burden grew increasingly difficult to bear. A typical holiday meal for 20 people cost me around $500 between the premium ingredients, wine, and decorations. On my modest salary as a school administrator, this meant sacrificing other things. I canceled my gym membership to afford the Christmas prime rib. I postponed car repairs to buy ingredients for Easter brunch. When Jake's son Lucas developed a gluten allergy, I spent extra on specialty flours without complaint. When my sister Melanie went through a vegan phase, I created separate dishes just for her. Not once did anyone offer to contribute. Not once did anyone acknowledge the financial strain. When I tried bringing it up casually, my mother would say, "But you are so good at it, sweetheart." And anyway, we all contribute in different ways. Those different ways remain mysterious to me. The physical toll was equally significant. Standing for 12 hours straight aggravated my back problems. The stress triggered migraines. I would often go to work the day after a holiday physically ill from exhaustion. One Christmas, I developed shingles. 2 days later, likely triggered by the stress and fatigue. I made several attempts to ask for help over the years. Once, I directly asked Jake if he could come early to assist with preparations. "Sorry, sis, I promised to take the kids sledding that morning," he replied without a hint of regret. When I asked Samantha if she could bring a dessert, she agreed but showed up with store-bought cookies still in the packaging. My mother claimed her arthritis prevented her from cooking, though it never stopped her from playing tennis twice a week. The most painful revelation came gradually through social media. After each holiday, family members would post dozens of photos online with captions like, Another wonderful family Christmas, or so grateful for family time. Scrolling through these albums, I realized something heartbreaking. I did not appear in a single photograph. Not one. While they documented every moment of their holiday experience, I was invisible, hidden away in the kitchen preparing the next course, or cleaning up after the last one. My sister Melanie developed an annual tradition that particularly hurt me. She would promise to bring dessert, giving me one less thing to worry about. Each year, I would plan the meal accordingly. And each year, she would text an hour before dinner. "Sorry, super busy, couldn't make the dessert." Next time, I would then scramble to create something sweet from whatever I had on hand. My father Robert's behavior was perhaps the most frustrating. He would plant himself in front of the television from the moment he woke up on holiday mornings, emerging only for meals. Once, when I asked if he could help carry dishes to the table, he chuckled and said, "That is women's work, honey." In the year 2020, my father still believed cooking and serving were exclusively female obligations. The internal conflict grew more intense with each passing holiday. I was raised to believe family came first. Grandma Margaret had instilled in me the idea that cooking for loved ones was an act of devotion. Breaking tradition felt like betraying her memory. Yet with each unacknowledged sacrifice, each dismissive comment, each absence from family photos, I felt pieces of my self-worth chipping away. I began dreading holidays months in advance. The sight of Christmas decorations in stores would trigger anxiety attacks. Cooking once my passion became associated with exploitation and invisibility. The very thing that had once connected me to my grandmother and brought me joy had transformed into a source of resentment and pain. 2 years ago, I decided to try changing the dynamic. I created a holiday meal sign-up sheet and emailed it to everyone 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. The email was carefully worded, explaining that as our gatherings had grown larger, I thought it would be fun to make it more of a potluck-style celebration where everyone could showcase their special dishes. The responses were immediate and uniformly negative. My mother called within minutes of receiving the email. "Tanya, what is this about? We cannot just change tradition. What would your grandmother say?" Jake texted, "Nice try, but we all know you are the only one who can cook worth a damn. Just do what you always do." Samantha, his wife, was more direct. "We have 3 kids now. We barely have time to shower, let alone cook. That is why we have you." My father did not respond at all, and Melanie sent back a single question mark as if the very idea was incomprehensible. I withdrew the suggestion, immediately apologizing for disrupting the status quo. That Thanksgiving, I worked even harder to prove my commitment to family traditions, ignoring the growing pit in my stomach. The following Christmas, I tried a different approach. Instead of asking family members to bring dishes, I attempted to delegate small tasks during the actual day. I asked Jake to carve the turkey, Melanie to arrange the dessert table, and Samantha to help serve the sides. The results were discouraging. Jake carved the turkey so haphazardly it resembled massacre rather than mealtime. Melanie rearranged the desserts I had carefully prepared, taking photos for her Instagram of her beautiful display. Samantha served microscopic portions of vegetables while heaping plates with expensive proteins. My mother hovered anxiously, repeatedly saying, "This is not how we usually do things." By New Year's Eve, I had retreated back to handling everything myself. It seemed easier than dealing with the resistance and incompetence. Around this time, I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Sarah Palmer, for increasing anxiety. During our 3rd session, I mentioned the holiday situation almost as an aside. Her response changed everything. "Tanya," she said gently, "what you are describing sounds like a classic pattern of exploitation. You are being taken advantage of by the people who should value you most." I defended my family immediately. They are not bad people. They just do not realize how much work goes into these meals. Dr. Palmer tilted her head. "After 15 years, they do not realize, or they simply do not want to know, because the current arrangement benefits them while costing you dearly." That question haunted me for weeks afterward. I began to see our family dynamic through new eyes. My perspective shifted further when my friend Amanda attended our Easter gathering last year. She observed the entire day from my pre-dawn cooking start to the late-night cleanup. After everyone left, she stayed to help me wash the final dishes. "Can I say something without you getting mad?" she asked, carefully drying a serving platter. "Of course. They treat you like hired help, not family," she said bluntly. "I did not see a single person thank you meaningfully. You were not in any photos. You did not get to sit down and enjoy the meal you spent days preparing. That is not right, Tanya." I wanted to argue but found myself speechless. When Amanda showed me the family photos she had taken that day, I noticed something I had become blind to. Everyone was relaxed, laughing, enjoying themselves. Everyone except me. In the few images where I appeared, I looked exhausted, tense, and much older than my 36 years. That summer, I met Michael at a community garden workshop. Unlike previous men I had dated, he showed genuine interest in my life beyond surface details. When I mentioned my holiday cooking tradition, expecting the usual impressed response about my culinary skills, his reaction surprised me. "Every holiday by yourself?" "For how many people?" he asked, looking concerned rather than impressed. "Usually around 20, sometimes more." He shook his head. "That does not sound like a tradition. That sounds like unpaid catering." As our relationship developed, he invited me to his family's Thanksgiving celebration. The contrast was illuminating. His mother Janet coordinated rather than cooked everything herself. Each family member brought significant dishes and helped with setup and cleanup. Michael's father handled the turkey, his sister the sides, his brother the desserts. Everyone pitched in with preparation and cleaning. Most striking of all, everyone sat down together. Everyone appeared in photos. Everyone enjoyed the day as a participant rather than a servant. I left feeling unsettled, suddenly aware of just how abnormal my family's expectations were. The internal struggle intensified. On one hand, I felt increasingly resentful and exploited. On the other, guilt plagued me whenever I considered changing the status quo. Who would I be if not the family holiday chef? What would happen to our family gatherings? Was I being selfish for wanting recognition and help? Then came Easter last spring. I woke up with a terrible flu, running a 102-degree fever. I texted everyone that I was sick and might need help with the meal preparations. My mother responded immediately. "Take some medicine and push through. Everyone is counting on your ham this year." Not one person offered to take over or even assist. My father suggested ordering pizza as a last resort, making it clear this was an undesirable option. Jake did not respond at all. Melanie sent a sad emoji. I dragged myself out of bed and spent 8 hours cooking while fighting nausea and dizziness. During the meal, which I could barely eat due to my illness, my mother proudly told a neighbor who had joined us, "Nothing stops Tanya from making her special meals. She is just like her grandmother that way." Not once during the day did anyone ask how I was feeling or offer to let me rest. When I went to the bathroom to throw up between serving dinner and dessert, no one noticed my absence. I drove home that night, pulled over twice to be sick on the side of the road, and cried myself to sleep. That was the moment I realized something had to change. This year, Thanksgiving approached with the usual dread magnified tenfold. My anxiety had reached new heights with physical symptoms, including insomnia, hair loss, and recurring migraines. Michael noticed the change in me as the holiday drew closer. "You look like you are preparing for battle, not a family dinner," he said one evening, as I made elaborate shopping lists. "Is it really worth this level of stress?" I had no answer for him. The truth was, I was beginning to question everything about this arrangement. But 15 years of conditioning made it nearly impossible to imagine an alternative. The week before Thanksgiving, I spent over $600 on groceries, maxing out my credit card. I requested 2 vacation days from work to prepare time I could have spent actually relaxing. I deep cleaned my apartment to host everyone, moving furniture to accommodate the expanded dining table that would take over my living room. The day before Thanksgiving, Jake texted, "For your information, invited my new team members from work. 4 extra people. They are excited to try your famous cooking. No request, just an announcement." I stared at the message for several minutes, feeling my heart race. That would bring the total to 24 people in my small apartment. I had planned for 20, which was already pushing my limits financially and logistically. Now I would need to recalculate everything, shop for additional ingredients, and figure out where to seat 4 extra adults. I responded with a simple okay while fighting back tears of frustration. Thanksgiving Day began at 4:30 in the morning. While the rest of the city slept, I was peeling potatoes, chopping vegetables, and preparing the 24-pound turkey for roasting. By 6, my kitchen looked like a professional catering operation, every surface covered with preparations in various stages. My family was scheduled to arrive at 1 for dinner at 2. My mother Diana showed up at 11:30, ostensibly to help, but actually to supervise. She walked around my kitchen adjusting things slightly and making comments about how she would have arranged the appetizers differently. "The table setting looks a bit casual," she remarked, fingering the cloth napkins I had ironed the night before. "Your grandmother always used the good china for Thanksgiving." I bit back a retort about how I did not own fine china on my school administrator's salary and how no one had offered to bring any. Instead, I just nodded and continued basting the turkey. My father arrived next immediately, asking if the football game was on yet. Without waiting for an answer, he located the remote and settled into my best armchair, the one I had specifically cleaned for my elderly aunt. Jake and Samantha arrived with their 3 children and the 4 coworkers they had invited. They brought nothing except their appetites and a bottle of inexpensive wine for 24 people. The coworkers looked uncomfortable, clearly unaware they had been added without consultation. One of them, a woman named Alicia, quietly approached me in the kitchen. "Thank you for having us," she said genuinely. "Is there anything I can do to help? I used to work as a line cook." Before I could respond, Jake intervened. "Do not worry about Tanya. This is what she lives for. Just relax and enjoy." I watched Alicia being led away, my one potential ally lost. Melanie texted at 1:45 that she was running late and would arrive around 3. This meant we would need to delay dinner, risking the precise timing I had planned for each dish. When she finally arrived at 3:20, she carried a store-bought pumpkin pie, still in the grocery store container, identical to the one I had spent hours making from scratch the day before. "Sorry about the time," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "But I brought dessert like I promised." She placed her pie next to mine as if they were equivalent offerings. By the time we sat down to eat at 3:45, I had been on my feet for over 11 hours. Every dish was perfect, despite the delays and complications. The turkey was golden and moist, the sides were abundant and flavorful, the homemade rolls were still warm. During the meal, I remained largely in the kitchen, bringing out fresh dishes and clearing used ones. When I did sit, it was only for a few minutes before someone needed something. "Tanya, can you get more gravy, Tanya? We are out of cranberry sauce." Tanya Lucas dropped his fork. As I moved between kitchen and dining area, I overheard my family discussing Christmas plans. My mother was saying Tanya will do prime rib again, right? That was so delicious last year. Jake chimed in, "And make sure you do those truffle mashed potatoes. Worth every calorie." They were planning my next performance without even including me in the conversation. Not asking if I wanted to host again, not suggesting anyone else take a turn, not offering to contribute. Just assuming I would continue in my role as the family chef indefinitely. The final straw came during dessert. As everyone praised Melanie's store-bought pie, which several people mistakenly believed she had made herself, my father patted his stomach and announced to the table, "We are so lucky Tanya never married or had kids. Means she has time to keep these traditions going for all of us." The table erupted in laughter and agreement. I stood frozen by the dessert table, the hot coffee pot trembling in my hand. The casual cruelty of his comment laid bare what I had suspected for years. My role was defined by what I provided, not who I was. My personal life was valued only insofar as it left me available to serve them. For the first time in 15 years of holiday cooking, I spoke up. "Actually," I said, my voice quavering slightly, "I have been feeling for a while that this arrangement is not working for me anymore. I put thousands of dollars and countless hours into these meals every year, and I do not feel appreciated." The table fell silent. My mother recovered first. "What do you mean? Not appreciated? We always say how good everything is." Complimenting the food is not the same as appreciating the person, I replied, surprising myself with my clarity. I am never in family photos. No one offers to help financially or practically. I am treated like a caterer, not a family member. My brother Jake scoffed. You are being dramatic. This is just what you do. No one forced you to take this on. That is not fair, I said, feeling heat rise to my face. When Grandma died, everyone was relieved when I volunteered. But what started as a gift has become an expectation. I have not enjoyed a holiday in years because I am always working. My father waved his hand dismissively. You are just sensitive. Nobody asked you to go all out like this. We would be happy with something simpler. That comment, after 15 years of them expecting and accepting elaborate meals, broke something in me. I placed the coffee pot down carefully before my shaking hands could drop it. I need some air, I said quietly, and walked out onto my small balcony. No one followed me. Through the glass door, I could see them resuming their conversations, some rolling their eyes, others shrugging. My absence, like my presence in the kitchen all these years, barely registered. I stayed outside until I heard people beginning to leave. I went through the motions of saying goodbye, accepting casual thanks and hugs. Not one person acknowledged our earlier exchange. Not one person asked if I was okay or offered to help clean up. After everyone left, I surveyed my apartment. It looked like a restaurant after a busy service, dirty dishes everywhere, food scraps on the floor, spills on the tablecloth chairs, askew. 5 hours of cleanup awaited me following 11 hours of cooking. I sat down among the mess and cried for the first time in years. Then I texted Michael, "Can you come over? I need to talk." That night, surrounded by the debris of Thanksgiving dinner, I made a decision that would change everything. Michael arrived within 20 minutes of my text, took one look at my tear-streaked face amid the disaster zone of my apartment, and wordlessly began loading the dishwasher. We cleaned in companionable silence for an hour before sitting down with cups of tea at my cleared kitchen table. "Tell me," he said simply. The whole story poured out of me, 15 years of increasing demands, decreasing appreciation, and mounting resentment. The financial burden, the physical toll, the emotional cost. The breaking point at tonight's dinner, and my family's dismissive response. Michael listened without interrupting. When I finally ran out of words, he asked a question that changed everything. What do you want to do about Christmas? Not how can you make them understand, or maybe they just do not realize. Just a simple acknowledgement that this was my decision to make. I do not want to cook, I replied immediately, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. I do not want to host. I do not want to be in that kitchen watching everyone else enjoy a holiday that costs me so much. Then do not, he said. You can say no, Tanya. The concept was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. Could I really just opt out? After 15 years of established expectations, where would I go, I wondered aloud. What would I do instead? Michael's eyes lit up. Remember how I mentioned my friend has that beach house in Florida they are not using this winter? We could go there, spend Christmas on the beach instead of in a kitchen. The image was so appealing it almost hurt. Sunshine instead of kitchen heat. Sand between my toes instead of aching feet on hard tile. The sound of waves rather than family demands. Most importantly, being a participant in my own holiday rather than a provider for everyone else's. They would never understand, I said, though the idea had already taken root. They would think I was being selfish. Maybe Michael acknowledged. Or maybe this is the wake-up call they need. Sometimes people do not value something until it is gone. Over the next few days, the idea transformed from a fantasy into a plan. Michael confirmed the beach house was available. We found reasonably priced flights. I requested vacation time, which I had in abundance since I rarely took days off except to prepare for family gatherings. The hardest part was figuring out how to inform my family. A group text seemed too impersonal for such a significant announcement, but individual conversations risked being manipulated or having my words twisted when retold. After much consideration, I decided on a carefully worded email that would go to everyone simultaneously. I spent hours drafting it, trying to balance honesty with kindness. The final version read, "Dear family, After much reflection, I have decided not to host or cook for Christmas this year. For 15 years, I have poured my heart, time, and finances into creating our holiday meals. While I began this tradition with joy to honor Grandma Margaret's memory, it has evolved into an arrangement that no longer feels balanced or sustainable for me. I realize this comes as a surprise, but Thanksgiving made me recognize how much these expectations have been affecting my physical and emotional health. I will be taking a true holiday this Christmas, spending it away from home. I am happy to share recipes if anyone wishes to continue the traditional meal. Perhaps this can be an opportunity for new traditions to emerge, where responsibilities are shared more evenly. I love you all, and look forward to seeing you in the new year. Tanya? I read it over 20 times before finally hitting send on December 1st, giving them more than 3 weeks' notice before Christmas. Then I turned off my phone and went for a long walk, knowing the responses would be immediate and likely heated. When I returned and checked my messages, I found exactly what I had expected. My mother had called 7 times and left voicemails ranging from confused to hurt to angry. The first began, "Tanya, what is this email about? Call me immediately." The last ended with, "You are ruining Christmas for everyone. I cannot believe you would do this to your family." Jake had texted, "Is this a joke? Who exactly is supposed to cook everything now? You cannot just bail on 15 years of tradition because your feelings got hurt." Melanie's message was shorter but equally telling, "Oh my god, drama much. But seriously, can you send me your stuffing recipe just in case?" My father, surprisingly, was the only one who called just once and left a measured message. "Tanya, this is your father. I am sorry if we have taken you for granted. Let us talk about this before you make any final decisions." The pressure continued mounting over the next 2 weeks. Daily calls, texts, and even an unexpected visit from my mother, who showed up at my apartment with grocery lists and cookbook references just in case you change your mind. My sister switched tactics from dismissive to flattering. "No one makes Christmas dinner like you do. It is your special talent." Jake attempted guilt. "The kids are going to be so disappointed. Emma was just saying how much she looks forward to your mashed potatoes all year." The manipulation was transparent but still effective. I found myself wavering the lifetime of conditioning to put family needs before my own, difficult to overcome. During one particularly weak moment, I almost canceled the flights. Michael provided steady support without pushing me either way. "Whatever you decide, I am with you," he assured me. But ask yourself, if you give in now, what message does that send about your boundaries going forward? As Christmas drew closer and my departure date approached, my family's messages took on a tone of disbelief. They simply could not fathom that I was actually going through with my plan. My mother called 2 days before we were set to leave. "I did not buy anything yet because I was sure you would come around," she admitted. "What exactly are we supposed to do for Christmas dinner now?" The question was so perfectly emblematic of the problem that I almost laughed. After 15 years, not one person had thought to take initiative to plan an alternative, to step up. They had been so confident in my capitulation that they had made no contingency plans whatsoever. "I am sure you will figure something out," I replied calmly. "You are all capable adults." The night before our early morning flight, I turned off my phone completely. For the first time in my adult life, I packed a suitcase for Christmas that contained swimsuits and sundresses instead of cooking tools and backup ingredients. The physical sensation of zipping that suitcase closed felt like cutting through chains I had not fully realized were binding me. I slept peacefully that night, dreaming of ocean waves rather than kitchen timers. Michael and I landed in Florida on December 23rd. Stepping out of the airport into warm sunshine that felt symbolic of the new beginning I was embarking on. The beach house was even more beautiful than the photos, a cozy one-bedroom cottage with a deck overlooking the ocean. The refrigerator had been stocked with basics, as arranged but noticeably absent were the dozens of specialty ingredients I would have been managing at home. That evening, we walked along the shoreline as the sun set, collecting seashells and talking about everything except family drama. For the first time in recent memory, I felt the knot of tension in my shoulders begin to release. That night, I slept for 10 uninterrupted hours, something that hadn't happened during a holiday week in 15 years. Christmas Eve morning, we had a leisurely breakfast on the deck watching dolphins play in the distance. Around noon, I finally turned my phone back on, bracing myself for the onslaught of messages. They came in a flood. 37 text messages, 15 voicemails, and 22 emails. Most were from my immediate family, but some were from extended relatives who had apparently been recruited to add pressure. The tone had shifted from disbelief to panic. My mother's texts chronicled her growing realization that I wasn't coming to save the day. 8:00 a.m. Just checking when you will arrive to start preparations. 10:15 a.m. We are all waiting for instructions. Please call as soon as possible. 12:30 p.m. This has gone far enough. Everyone is coming tomorrow and there is no food prepared. 3:45 p.m. I tried to roast the turkey, but something is wrong with it. Please call me back. 7:20 p.m. Disaster. Complete disaster. I hope you are happy. My sister Melanie had sent photos that told the story better than words could. The kitchen in chaos with dirty bowls everywhere, what appeared to be a raw turkey, sitting sadly on a counter, and family members looking confused and irritated. One image particularly stood out: Jake, standing before an open refrigerator with a bewildered expression captioned, "What does brine even mean?" Most surprising were the voicemails from my brother. The first few were angry, accusing me of being selfish and ruining the holiday. But the last one, left at 9:30 Christmas Eve night, had a different tone entirely. "Hey, Tan," he began, using my childhood nickname for the first time in years. "So we tried. We really did. Dad bought a turkey, but none of us knew what to do with it. Mom tried following a recipe from the Food Network, but set off the smoke alarm. Melanie burned the rolls completely. I had no idea mashed potatoes could turn that color." He paused, and I could hear him take a deep breath. "I guess what I am trying to say is that we might have taken you for granted. It takes a lot more work than any of us realized. Anyway, Merry Christmas. It is not the same without you." On Christmas morning, Michael and I exchanged small gifts on the deck while watching the sunrise over the ocean. No frantic cooking schedule, no timing crises, no family tensions, just peace, companionship, and the gentle sound of waves. At 11, my phone rang. It was my mother. After hesitating, I answered, "Merry Christmas, Mom." There was a pause, then her voice sounding smaller than I had ever heard it. "Merry Christmas, Tanya. Are you having a nice day?" The question seemed to cost her effort, acknowledging as it did that I existed beyond my function to the family. "I am," I replied honestly. "It is beautiful here, peaceful." Another pause. "We ordered Chinese food," she said finally. "The turkey was, well, it was not edible. None of us knew what we were doing." "I am sorry the meal didn't work out," I said, surprised to find I genuinely meant it. "No, I am the one who should be sorry," my mother said, her voice catching. I did not realize how much you did for us all these years. How much we depended on you. How much we took for granted." It was the apology I had wanted for years, though I had never expected to actually receive it. Later that day, my sister called too. "This was the worst Christmas dinner ever," she announced without preamble. "Nothing tasted right. The potatoes were lumpy. The gravy had actual chunks in it. Jake tried to make stuffing that was somehow both burnt and raw." I waited for the guilt trip that would surely follow, but instead Melanie surprised me. "I never knew how hard you worked," she said quietly. "All these years I just showed up and enjoyed. I never thought about what went into it. That was not fair to you." Throughout the day, texts trickled in from various family members, many containing photos of their Christmas gathering that looked markedly different from previous years. The dining table was less formal, the food clearly improvised. But something else stood out: they were all in the pictures. Everyone had been part of the experience, for better or worse. Jake's wife Samantha sent a particularly telling text. "The kids asked where you were and why the food was so bad this year. We had a good conversation about appreciation and not taking people for granted. They want to learn some of your recipes so they can help next time. My father, never one for phone calls, surprised me by calling that evening. Well, we survived, he said gruffly. Though I would not call it Christmas dinner as we know it. I am glad you managed, I replied, unsure where the conversation was heading. Look, Tanya, he said after an awkward pause. I said something thoughtless at Thanksgiving about you not having your own family. The truth is, you have given up a lot to take care of us all these years. That comment was out of line and I apologize. Coming from my father, who had never apologized for anything in my memory, this was momentous. Social media told another interesting story. My family members, who typically posted idealized holiday images, shared more honest content this year. My brother posted Christmas 2023, the year we learned cooking is actually hard work, newfound respect for it, Tanya. My sister's Instagram featured a photo of burned dinner rolls with the caption, turns out holiday magic doesn't just happen. Sorry at Tanya for never helping. Lesson learned. As I scrolled through these posts from my peaceful retreat, a strange feeling washed over me. Not guilt as I had feared, but a profound sense of having done something necessary not just for myself, but ultimately for my family too. That evening, Michael and I had dinner at a local seafood restaurant where I enjoyed a meal someone else had prepared. The chef came out briefly to greet guests, and I made a point of complimenting him sincerely. His tired smile of appreciation reminded me of what I had needed all those years. How are you feeling about everything? Michael asked, as we walked along the moonlit beach after dinner. I considered the question carefully. Lighter, I finally answered, like I set down a burden I did not realize was crushing me, but also hopeful. Their responses weren't what I expected. Sometimes people can surprise you when you give them the chance, he said, squeezing my hand. For the first time in 15 years, I appeared in holiday photos, not as the background figure briefly escaping the kitchen, but as the center of my own experience. My smile in those images was genuine, relaxed, present. I was living my holiday rather than facilitating everyone else's. As we prepared to return home after the new year, I felt a mixture of emotions. Part of me worried that the family's realizations would be temporary, that things would revert to old patterns once the shock wore off. But another part felt fundamentally changed. I had discovered I could say no, could prioritize my needs, could exist beyond my utility to others. That knowledge could not be unlearned. Returning home in January felt like stepping into a new reality. The woman who left her apartment in December was not the same one who returned. I had proved to myself that I could break patterns, set boundaries, and survive the fallout. More than survive, thrive. I deliberately scheduled a family meeting for mid-January once holiday emotions had settled. We gathered at a neutral location, a private room in a local restaurant where everyone would be on equal footing. I arrived early to collect my thoughts, reminding myself to speak from a place of honesty rather than accumulated resentment. My family filed in with uncharacteristic solemnity. Gone was the casual entitlement I had grown accustomed to. Instead, they seemed cautious, perhaps even a little contrite. We ordered drinks and appetizers, making small talk until everyone was settled. Thank you all for coming. I began, my heart racing despite my preparation. I wanted us to talk about what happened over Christmas, and more importantly, about how we move forward as a family. I explained without accusation but with complete candor how the holiday traditions had affected me over the years. The financial strain, the physical exhaustion, the emotional cost of being valued primarily for what I provided rather than who I was. I described the hurt of being excluded from family photos and memories while enabling those very experiences for everyone else. I did not go away over Christmas to punish anyone, I clarified. I did it because I needed to experience a holiday as a participant rather than a provider. I needed to know what it felt like to be present rather than just functional. Their reactions varied but shared a common thread of realization. My mother, Diana, normally quick to become defensive, listened with uncharacteristic attention. I always thought you enjoyed it, she said finally. That it was your way of connecting to Mom, to her legacy. I never stopped to think that what started as a gift had become an obligation. That was unfair of me. Jake, who had struggled most visibly with their failed Christmas dinner, spoke next. When I was trying to figure out how to cook that turkey, I kept thinking, Tanya makes this look so easy. But it is not easy. It is hours of work and knowledge and care, and we just expected it year after year. Melanie, my younger sister, had tears in her eyes. I promised to bring dessert every year and then bailed last minute because I knew you would handle it. I treated you like a backup plan, not a sister. I am really sorry, Tanya. My father, Robert, never comfortable with emotional discussions, cleared his throat. I said that thoughtless thing about you not having your own family. The truth is, you have always prioritized this family above yourself. That comment was cruel and I apologize. Their words were healing, but I knew words alone would not change entrenched patterns. I appreciate your understanding, I said, but I think we need to talk about practical changes going forward. Together, we created a new approach to family holidays. First, we would rotate hosting duties among those with suitable homes. Second, each gathering would be potluck style, with everyone bringing significant dishes. Third, costs for the main protein, and shared items would be divided equally. Fourth, everyone would participate in setup and cleanup. My brother Jake, surprising me, completely volunteered to host Easter. I want to learn how to cook some basic dishes, he admitted. Maybe you could teach me your mashed potato recipe. The ones I made at Christmas were basically paste. Melanie suggested we create a family cookbook with Grandma Margaret's recipes and the ones I had developed over the years. Not so we can expect you to make everything, she clarified quickly, but so we can all learn to contribute. My mother, after some hesitation, acknowledged the gender dynamics that had shaped our traditions. Your grandmother and I were raised believing holiday meals were women's responsibility. I perpetuated that without questioning it. That was wrong, and I am sorry. We left the meeting with a concrete plan and a shared Google document outlining responsibilities for upcoming gatherings. But more important than the practical arrangements was the shift in awareness. For perhaps the first time, my family saw me as a person with needs and limits, not just a provider of comfort and nourishment. Easter became the test case for our new system. Jake and Samantha hosted, transforming their backyard into a spring celebration space. I arrived to find Jake in the kitchen apron on, focused intently on a recipe card. Is this right? He asked, showing me a bowl of seasoned potatoes ready for roasting. I have been practicing for weeks. I checked his work and nodded approvingly. Perfect. You are a natural. My mother brought her famous deviled eggs prepared from Grandma Margaret's recipe. Melanie arrived on time with homemade desserts. My father, to everyone's shock, had prepared a ham following a YouTube tutorial. I contributed several side dishes, but the difference was profound. I cooked them in my own kitchen at a reasonable hour, enjoyed the process without exhaustion, and arrived as a guest rather than a caterer. Most significantly, when it came time for the family photo, Jake's wife Samantha said, "Tanya, you are in the middle this time. You are always behind the camera or in the kitchen. Today, you are front and center." Standing surrounded by my family for that photo, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Vindication that my stand had created change, gratitude that they had been willing to learn, and a deeper sense of connection, now that our relationship had become more balanced. The journey from resentment to assertiveness was not easy or straightforward. There were awkward moments as we all adjusted to new roles and expectations. My mother occasionally slipped into old patterns of assuming I would just handle certain dishes. Jake burned the dinner rolls at his first hosting attempt. Melanie was 30 minutes late to one planning meeting. But with each small setback came greater awareness and recommitment to change. Family text chains that once contained only demands for my cooking now included recipe exchanges and coordination of who would bring what. Financial contributions arrived without prompting. Thank you notes acknowledged effort, not just results. The deeper healing came in unexpected moments, my nephew Lucas asking me to teach him how to make gravy, my father calling for advice about cooking times, my mother admitting she had never learned certain techniques because her own mother had controlled the kitchen. These exchanges created new bonds based on sharing knowledge rather than extracting labor. Michael became integrated into these gatherings, bringing his own family's traditions into our evolving celebrations. His perspective as an outsider who became an insider helped keep us accountable to the changes we had committed to making. The most profound shift happened within me. I rediscovered joy in cooking when it became a choice rather than an obligation. I learned to express my needs directly, instead of silently resenting their absence being met. I recognized that true family connection comes from mutual respect and reciprocity, not self-sacrifice and martyrdom. Perhaps most importantly, I realized that setting boundaries is not selfish, it is necessary for authentic relationships. By refusing to continue in a role that diminished me, I created space for something healthier to grow. My family did not love me less when I stopped catering to them. If anything, our connections deepened when they began to see me as a complete person rather than a function. As I look toward future holidays, I feel something I had lost years ago: anticipation rather than dread. I look forward to gathering with my family, cooking alongside them, rather than for them appearing in photos, and creating memories in which I am present rather than just essential. To those watching, who recognize their own stories in mine, I encourage you to examine the roles you have accepted in your relationships. Are you valued for who you are or merely what you provide? Do you participate in gatherings or merely facilitate them? Is your contribution recognized or simply expected? Remember that traditions should serve the people who practice them, not the other way around. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to step back and allow new, healthier patterns to emerge from the discomfort of change. If my story resonated with you today, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more discussions about family dynamics and personal growth. Share your own experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones? How did it change your relationships? Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you the courage to honor your worth in all your connections.